Hello, my name is TigerM23. I'm from Laverne Church of Christ. And to begin, I've got a quick question for you. How many of you have been in a position of leadership before? When I was growing up, my father always told me to be a leader and not a follower. But for the longest time, I never knew what that meant. I knew what a leader was, but I didn't know how to lead. Even now, going to my second year as my high school's drum major, I still ask myself every day, am I leading in the correct way? After studying this text, I can say that I have an answer. In order to lead, we need to follow. And I know that doesn't make too much sense now, and it didn't make sense to me at first, but it makes sense to me first, but because my dad always said that I needed to be the one leading the pack and not the other way around. And to find the answer, we need to learn from a leader. And one of the best sets of leaders to learn from are the kings of Judah. The king we're focusing on today is one of the worst kings that Judah ever had, Jehoram. Now turn with me, if you wish, to 2 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 4. And here the text reads, "When Jehoram had ascended the throne of his father and was established, he killed all his brothers with a sword, and also some of the princes of Israel. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done. For the daughter of Ahab was his wife, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord." Jehoram was already king. He had control of the entire land of Judah. So why would he kill his brothers? I believe it was because of the fear of losing his power, his kinglyhood over everyone after they found out that he was not fit to lead them. It may have also been to gain the approval of his wife, who would take the throne from Jehoram's son only a year after he was on the throne. And while we are not kings, we can still hold positions of power. We may not kill, but we can sabotage our fellow brothers. We can speak down to them and hold them back, tell them they aren't as great as us. We can be the reason why they never reach their full potential. Just as Jehoram sought the approval of his wife, we could seek the approval of those in the world. We can allow people to put words into our mouths and use our influence to better themselves, just as Athaliah had done. However, this does not only affect us, but it can lead to tragedy for those who follow us. We're now going to jump ahead to verse 11, where it reads, "Moreover, he made high places in the hill country of Judah, and led the inhabitants of Jerusalem into whoredom, and made Judah go astray. And a letter came to him from Elijah the prophet, saying, 'Thus said the Lord, the God of David your father, because you have not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat your father, or in the ways of Asa king of Judah, but have walked in the way of the kings of Israel, and have enticed Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem into whoredom, as the house of Ahab led Israel into whoredom, and also you have killed your brothers of your father's house, who were better than you. Behold, the Lord will bring a great plague on your people, your children, your wives, and all of your possessions, and you yourself will have a severe sickness with the disease of your bowels, until your bowels come out of you by the disease day by day.' Now Elijah had sent a letter from heaven to tell what a horrible job that Jehoram had done. He wrote of the idols Jehoram had decided to worship instead of God, and how he had led the entire nation astray. This was God's final straw for the horrible king. And then the Lord abandoned Jehoram for the evil things he had done. The sad part of this the sad part of the story is not what happened to Jehoram. He deserved what was coming to him. But no, it was the people that suffered because of the decisions that he had made. All because one man had decided to put his worldly gods before our one true God. And this is the tragedy of leading alone. Leaders are viewed as the example, someone that everyone should strive to be like. How would it look if your team captain for football, soccer, or baseball decided not to go to practice every other day? It wouldn't look good. What if that same captain went out the day before the match and decided to go out drinking and partying? What kind of effect would that put on your team as a whole? This is the same in our churches. What if instead of teaching what God said, we decided to teach what we wanted them to believe instead, just like the team captain leaving his team ill-equipped before the match. We would be leaving the church ill-equipped to serve the Lord and ill-equipped to share the gospel with those outside of the faith. Now, Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, imitate me, just as I also imitate Christ. But how do we imitate Christ? In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 10, it explains how we can imitate him. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understandings. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Hear the Lord, and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. The critical part of these verses is to not lean on your own understanding, but to acknowledge the Lord. Just as the kings were God's way to speak to the people of Judah, we are his vessel to share the word to the entire world. When we let God speak through us, everyone benefits. My father told me growing up the importance of leaders. And as I get older, I begin to understand more and more why leaders are important. We need to be an example for the church. The future depends on how we act and how we let the word be spoken through us. My father said I needed to lead people, but that never meant having to do it alone. My father said I needed to lead. My father said I needed to lead people, but that never meant having to do it alone. Jehoram's failure is a perfect example of what we should never do. By failing for what the world says, or falling for what the world says, and leaving God behind, it only brings consequences to ourselves. Not only brings consequences to ourselves, but those who follow us. Instead, as leaders, we should allow God to lead through us, just as Proverbs says. The path will become straight, and we do not need to worry about making decisions, because the greatest leaders will be leading while following God.